The river had no far bank that he could see. A near bank, which they stood on, and water, slow and dark and going nowhere with great patience, and after the water more of the same grey that was over everything, so the river was less a thing with two sides than a place where the ground gave up. He had thought, coming down through the dark of the first long descent, that he would be afraid of the water. He wasn't. He was tired in a way that had no bottom to it, and the tiredness ate the fear, and he waited on the bank among the others and did not think much at all. The boat came sideways out of the grey. It was a flat low working boat, the kind for moving freight on a canal, riding heavy and dark in the water, and the man pulling it was not what he'd braced for. He had half expected horns. Instead, a big stooped man in oilcloth gone stiff with age, a flat tired face and forearms like a butcher's, and he brought the boat in against the bank without looking at any of them, the way a man docks a boat he has docked 10,000 times, by feel, thinking about something else, or about nothing. On, the ferryman said. Not to anybody. To the bank. They got on. There was no jostling, that was a thing about the dead he was learning, that they did not jostle, they had been emptied of the small frictions, and moved like water finding its level, which was down. He stepped onto the boat and it took his weight without a sound and he found a place to stand among them. You stood, here, even on a boat, nobody sat. And the ferryman's flat eyes came off the water and onto him and stayed. It was the first time anything in this place had looked at him and gone on looking, instead of sliding past to whatever it was the dead all looked at. The tired face didn't change. But the pole stopped going in, and the boat sat still under the sudden stillness of the man, and the dead stood patient and incurious all around while the ferryman regarded him the way you regard a coin that's come up the wrong weight in your palm. That one's warm, he said. He's with me, the old man said. He had stepped on last, easy. That's not what I said. The ferryman did not raise his voice. He had no use for it, the river did his menace for him, slow and black and bottomless at his back. I keep account. I always keep account, every load that crosses, I've the number of it before a foot's aboard, and tonight the number's wrong by one, and the one it's wrong by is standing there with the blood still in him. The living don't cross. His eyes moved, at last, to the old man. You of all of them know what I do with a wrong number. The nameless man opened his mouth, not knowing what was in it to say, and the old man's hand closed on his arm, dry, hard. Let me, and he shut it. Look again, the old man said. You're a careful man. He's not living. He's not yours yet, either. He's between, there's no heading on your form for him because he hasn't earned one, and he's going down to earn it. That's the whole reason he's with me. So you don't carry him on your count. You carry him on mine. The ferryman looked again. Whatever he saw the second time did not please him, but it was a thing he could file, and a thing he could file was a thing he could let pass. On your count, he said. Then you pay on your count. The old man paid. He didn't quite see what changed hands. The old man's fist went into the dark of his layered coat and came out and met the ferryman's, and the ferryman's eyes dropped to his own palm and counted, and in a half-second before the fist closed the nameless man saw two small dull discs lying there. 2. Not 1. He understood, without being told, that one was his fare, a man who comes through with his pockets turned out cannot pay his own way, and the other was the price of the bad count, of being seen and carried anyway against the number. The old man crossed this water for nothing, most nights, an arrangement, old and worn smooth. Tonight the arrangement had a passenger it didn't cover, and that cost extra, and the extra came out of a purse the old man had no way to fill. The leather face gave away nothing. But the old man said it low, almost to himself, sliding his hand back inside the coat, that's 2 I don't get back, and there was none of the usual dryness in it, only flat arithmetic. The nameless man filed that. The way the ferryman had filed him. On your count, the ferryman agreed, and the pole went back into the black. Bring him to a heading, then. I don't like an open number on my water. The boat pushed off. For a while there was only the water against the hull, a low intimate sound, and the pole going in and coming out, in and coming out, and the gray. He looked at his hands on the gunwale. They were his hands. He knew it the way you know a word you can't define, a flat certainty with nothing under it. But he turned them over and the palms told him nothing, no callus he could account for, no scar with a story, and the not accounting opened a small cold door somewhere in him. He looked at the hands and could not find the man they belonged to. Whose hands are these? They closed when he told them to. That was all the answer there was. Don't, the old man said, low, beside him. He hadn't said what. He didn't need to. The crossing took no time he could measure and went on a long while. Both were true. He gave up on it. Then there was a bank, the far one that had not been there, and they were against it, and the ferryman said, off, to the air, and they went off. He looked back once and there was only water. The first circle was quiet, and the quiet was the worst thing about it. He had braced, without knowing he was bracing, for noise. Every circle's full of people doing the one thing forever, the old man had said at the gate, and he'd built behind it some idea of what forever would sound like. He had been wrong. The sound was sighing. Just that. A vast soft continuous exhalation, coming from no direction because it came from every direction, a field of breath let out and not much drawn back in, going on across a plain that ran further than the dead sky let him see, and it never rose and never fell and never once became a word. No fire. He kept waiting to stop waiting for fire. The air was only cool, a still even gray, the temperature of a cellar that has forgotten the house above it. There were more people than the plain at the gate, an unhurried multitude standing and drifting, the slow aimless drift of people in a waiting room of no fixed hour. Nobody was in torment. He looked for it. No chains, no flames, no one bent under anything. They were not being hurt. They were only here, and going to go on being here, and they knew it, and that knowing was the gray light they stood in. Nothing, like the others, he said. Not a question. He thought he had the trick of the place now. Not like the others. The old man walked with his hands inside his layered dark coat, not looking at the souls, the way you don't look at the contents of a room you've been through many times. That lot up top did nothing, never picked, never moved, spent their lives with a finger in the air. This lot did nothing wrong. There's a world between the two, and the world between them is the whole of why these are down here and not up where they wanted. Nothing wrong, most of them. Born in the wrong century, the wrong country, never got the right water on their heads, never heard the right name, and the office doesn't take I didn't know as a line on the form. So they don't burn. There's nothing to burn them for. He stepped around a man standing motionless in their path. They just don't get the other thing. The up. They got told there was an up, and reached for it the way you reach, and the office had already entered them under a different heading. That's all this is. The ache of the door you can see and we're never going to be let through. That's worse, he said. It's quieter, the old man said, which was not agreement and was not denial. He walked through the sighing. He kept doing the thing the old man had named at the gate, the thing he couldn't stop, he counted. His eyes went over the faces, taking them in and setting them down, looking for one he couldn't have described if you'd asked, and not finding it, and going on. He didn't know he was looking for a her until he caught himself rejecting the men. Not him. Not him. His eyes did it on their own. He made them stop and they started again the moment he stopped attending. A woman near the path was holding her elbows and looking at the ground a little ahead of her feet, and as he came level she said, without looking up, not really to him, I kept thinking they'd send word. Her voice was flat and reasonable. There was supposed to be word. You wait for it, any day. I'd got the room ready. She wasn't crying. She had the worn-out face of someone a long way past crying, telling the small true grievance over because it was the size she could hold. He almost stopped. The old man's hand came to his arm, not hard, and he didn't. Further on a man stood with his back to a leaning gray stone, carving something. He had no knife. He carved with his thumbnail, slow, into the stone, which did not mark, and went over the same lines anyway, over and over, the stone staying blank, talking the whole time in a low steady mutter, not to anyone, a list of measurements, something about a roof beam, something about his brother owing him, and he never once looked up and his thumb never stopped. He was, in some plain way, not all there. Had not been, perhaps, in life either. The old man passed him without a flicker. He carved his nothing into the stone that wouldn't take it, and they left him to it, and it would go on after they were gone, the thumb, the roof beam, the brother who owed him, forever, and it meant nothing and pointed at nothing, one man's small dull eternity, going on. There was a smell of cold dust. There was a child's shoe on the ground, on its side, no child near it, and he looked at it and it was just a shoe. He stopped, once, without deciding to. He didn't know why. A flat grey reach of nothing in particular, and he had stopped in the middle of it and his chest was doing something, not grief, he had no object for grief, just the shape of grief, the body knowing how to do it with nothing to do it about. The sighing went on all around him. He reached, the way you reach, and where the word should have been there was a clean cool blank, smooth as the worn step, the exact size and shape of a name and holding none, and he stood at the edge of it and felt the air come up out of it cold against his face. He almost went in after it. Something told him not to, the same something that had told him not to look twice at the water. He stepped back from the blank without ever having moved his feet. "You'll do that," the old man said. He had stopped a little ahead, waiting, a dark shape against the dark plain. "Stand and forget you're standing. It's the place. It gets into your breathing. Spend long enough here and you join them and not notice the day you did it." He didn't say it cruelly. He said it the way you tell someone the floor is wet. Keep your feet moving. The grief here isn't yours. Borrow it and it keeps you. How do you know it isn't mine? The old man looked at him a moment, the deep dry eyes giving back the gray. "Yours is downstairs," he said. "All of it. You haven't met any of yours yet." They came to where the plane began to go down. It was nothing dramatic. The ground that had been level was not, and then was less so, a long shallow tilt he felt in his shins before his eyes found it, the way you feel a hill in the dark. The sighing thinned behind them. The standing dead grew fewer at the edges of the slope, the way a crowd thins at the edge of a fair, until there were only a last few, faces turned back the way they'd come as if even the going down was a thing they'd been denied and could only watch. And on the slope, coming up to meet him out of the dark below, there was a sound that was not sighing. He felt it first in the body, before the mind. A low pressure, a moving weight in the air, far off and underneath, the sound a great wind makes when it is somewhere else and coming. It was below. It rose up the tilt of the ground to meet them, a long booming hollow rush with something in it that climbed and broke and was, he understood it slow, the way the place handed everything out, one piece at a time, voices. A great many, lifted and flung and not let down, going over and never landing. The old man started down without a word, sure-footed, a man who knew the stairs. He stood one more moment at the lip of the quiet, where the grey grief ended and the dark below began to pull. Behind him the sighing. Ahead and under, the storm, coming up to meet him, full of voices doing the one thing forever, and not one of them at rest. He went down toward it. Next, the wind that never lets them land, and the first of the dead who will look back and know him, a woman with a story she has told so many times it has worn smooth as the step, and not one word of it true the way she needs it to be.